when we first decided to record our channel, we both said we were new to TikTok, Instagram and all those sort of things, and also to recording ourselves doing stuff. Last week I made my first big oops. I decided to service our Lister HRW3. First time I've ever worked on this sort of engine. My old boat had a BMC which I serviced regularly. It was quite easy to do. This one I was a little bit worried about, but I thought I would record myself servicing it, all the ups and downs, the mistakes I would make, and share that with everybody. I did that, and then what happened, I uploaded it to Edit's creator, and my phone started to make funny flashes at me, telling me my memory was awful and that I needed to delete some files. So asking ChatGPT if, having uploaded all the videos to Edits, could I delete the originals, because that's what was taking up the space on my memory. ChatGPT said yes, you can do this. So I deleted all my originals, started working on the edits to try and cut it down, because it was 49 minutes long. At some point I got to the end of the videos and there was lots missing. I hadn't realised that due to my memory being full, it wasn't able to upload all the videos. So basically I lost everything. So what I'm going to do, which should only take 10 minutes, is explain how I serviced our engine, and hope that helps anybody else who in future decides they will service their engine. So the first thing I did, to try and catch as much oil, diesel, etc. that might come out and spill into the engine bay, I packed it all out, as you can see, with old rags, mainly my old clothes that are all worn out or all dirty from doing different things around boats. So the first thing to do was to start the engine and let it run for about 15 minutes to get the engine warm and thinner, because what we were having to do was to use this pump here on the side of the engine, where you can see the pipe goes all the way down to the sump, to pump the oil up and out through this little nozzle here. There's a little turn key here, which you need to turn the other way to make sure that the oil can flow, and then you just pump this handle up and down, and on the downstroke it will push the oil out of here, and then I used a jug to catch it in. For future reference, I will be making an adapter with an elbow on here so that I can put an old oil container underneath and pump straight into that. Believe it or not, it took 40 pumps to get 1 litre of oil out of the engine, and the engine should hold 12 litres, but unfortunately the previous owners or person that serviced this had actually put 17 litres in. Well, that's what I got out of it, and I've never added oil to it. The next thing was to do, once all the oil was out, was to change the oil filter, which is here. Bolt on top. I put a catcher underneath just in case any oil was left in it, but I was hoping, as it was upside down, as the oil emptied out of the sump, it would also drain out of the filter. Undo that bolt, it comes off. Inside there on the top is a spring. Then I took the filter out, which also has a little plate on top which the spring rests on, and then thankfully no oil came out, so it was all nice and clean. There was a O-ring seal in the base which I replaced. There was also an O-ring seal to go between the nut and the top case, which I replaced. and obviously replace the filter, put the spring back in and the little plate in, and put it all back on top and tightened it up. Next was the fuel filter. Here's the fuel filter there. Down here is the turn off valve for the fuel, so that's currently on and that's currently off. That there is a manual lift pump, but unfortunately there is no attachment under that to lift it, and that's for priming the fuel cartridge when you've replaced it. So on the top of the fuel filter is two nuts. The centre nut here is the one that you undo, and this plate at the bottom drops down and the filter will come off with the bottom plate. So what I did with that, again, I put a capture underneath, undid it a little bit at a time, let the fuel run out, tightened it back up, emptied the fuel into a container because I was trying not to get it everywhere, and eventually once that filter was empty, completely dropped it out. So this is the filter, this is the bottom case, that came away. Underneath this bolt here is a rubber O-ring. Inside of that there is also an internal O-ring, and this bottom plate here also had an O-ring to go in it as well. And then I put the new filter on, attached it up, tightened it up. This bolt here is the bleed screw. So I opened that up with the vision or the insight to try and pour some diesel down there to try and fill as much of the filter up to prime it, or to save priming it, to get the diesel running and not create any air, hopefully not create any airlocks. Unfortunately the hole was so small I couldn't really do it that way. So what I ended up doing was opening the bleed screw, and obviously with the fuel line in the on position like that, I would then plan to crank the engine over. Obviously before I did all that, or before I cranked the engine over, here's my filler cap, and I filled that with 12 litres of oil, SAE 30, and obviously check the dipstick just in case to make sure that was the correct amount of oil. And as you can see, it's at the high mark. That's because I know that I'm going to lose probably half a litre to the filter and going around all the pipe works and filling back up. So once the engine oil was in, definitely turned off the pump valve, fuel was on, bleed screw was open, just about 2 turns. I then switched on the engine and manually cranked it over using the start button, but just letting it do a little bit. And what happened was bubbles would spurt out of it along with little bits of fuel, which I cleaned up as it was going along. Once the oil started, once the fuel started to come out, I tightened up the bleed screw and turned the engine over. And I was getting worried because I have been told that if it didn't start, I'd have to crank or open up the injectors. And at the moment, I haven't managed to track down where those are. I'm presuming they're behind this plate because that's where the fuel out pipe goes to. So thankfully for me though, started the engine. It was spluttering a little bit. I built the revs up to about 1,000 revs. It coughed, spluttered, and carried on running. And I ran it up for about 15 minutes. Turned the revs back down. It started to struggle a little bit, so I turned the revs back up. Left it another 15 minutes. Turned the revs back down, and at idle, it was still running. So I then switched it off, let it cool down, rechecked the engine oil to make sure there was enough in there, I did have to put about half a litre in, just topped it up, and that was one successful service done. Next I've got to do the coolant system, the gearbox, and grease up the prop shaft, but that I will save for another day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and sorry you never got to see me actually servicing the engine, although that, like I said, was about 50-minute videos.